I had a friend who passed away in 2016 on June 9th. And my mom actually died on June 22nd, 13 days later, 2016. It was a rough month, to say the least. And Daryl was his name, and he took sick probably in 2014 and had some upswings, and then finally he went down in 2016. I was playing guitar at a church at the time, and Daryl was my he did the words on the screen, and so you could follow along in service. We became pretty good friends, him and his wife. His wife actually sang harmonies with me, and it was a good time of life. Daryl was a good guy. His wife was terrific, and Donna is her name. But anyway, throughout Daryl's illness, I played my guitar and sang to him around his bed. Me and another guy named Mike who played guitar with me, and I did all the singing. And then occasionally our group of friends would come and sing with me, and it was a sweet time, but a sorrowful time to watch a good friend fade. The last night I played for Daryl, actually 6 of us went over there of our good friend group up to his house. He was basically sent home to die, and he had a hospital bed in his house, and we got there at 6 in the evening, and he was laying there in bed. His eyes were closed, and I got some music out of my guitar case and sang a couple songs, and Daryl didn't have any response, like he was sleeping, and I said, hey, we probably should go now, because Daryl's kind of tired, and he opened his eyes and said, "More." And so we proceeded to sing and play about 10 songs that night, and we got up to leave. It was about dusk, and everybody else had piled out except for my wife Janet and I. And I went over to Daryl's bed, and throughout his illness, when we knew it was terminal, I would tell him or ask him. I would say, "Hey, Daryl, when you get to heaven, can you give me a sign, if you can?" And he would say, "I don't think it's allowed," in his dry sense of humor. And I had said that a couple times to him, which in retrospect, I don't know if it was the right thing to do. Not for anything like theological, but basically telling him he's going to die. But we did share the same. We did and do share the same faith, and so that's where I felt the freedom to bring up heaven with this dying man. So that very last night, which we didn't know was going to be his last night, I sat on his bed, and I held his hand, and I told him what a treasure he had been in my life. And Daryl he wasn't quiet, but he was a thinker, and he wasn't quick to talk, but he wasn't quiet per se. And so I said to him, as I held his hand and glanced down at him, I said, "Daryl, you're a thinking man. What are you thinking about at this time? What are you thinking about right now?" And he opened his eyes, and he looked at me and said, Jesus. And it ministered to me that he said that. And then Janet was there, and Janet was, all eyes full of tears, and and I was actually very teary myself. And Janet said to him, "Now, Daryl," no, I think I said to him, "Daryl, when you get to heaven, you got to let me know." And then Janet said, "Daryl, just don't get in trouble. If you can't do it, don't do it." Just kind of lightheartedly. And we said goodbye. Janet gave him a kiss. And 5 hours later, we got a phone call about 11:30 that he had passed. Now, here's the crux of this story is, and I have to preface it with saying, I didn't ever mention this story that I'm going to relate to you to Daryl while he was on his deathbed. And I don't think I ever said it at any time, but I'm not positive about that, but I'm real sure that I didn't ever mention this. And that is, I had read an article one time about John Lennon, and Daryl was a fan too, like me. But anyways, I read this article, and he told his son Julian that if he ever passed away, he would try to notify him. And he said, "I'll maybe float a feather across the room." And that always intrigued me, that idea of to be sitting in a room and see a feather float by and know that there's more to this life than what we see and feel and touch. So Daryl passed away that June, and we went to his service and all that. And August rolled around, and it was a very rainy summer. It rained a lot. And somewhere between Daryl's death and mid-August, late August, or whatever it was, I bought a used pickup, a Ford pickup. And I drove it for 3 weeks, back and forth to work. And one day Janet said, "Hey, can I drive the new truck?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course." I didn't even think of it. It had been rainy and, it wasn't great weather. And so it was a beautiful morning, that morning that she chose to drive my truck, and I drove her Mini Cooper, which I love her Mini Cooper. So it was a treat for me as well. So I'm driving to work, Janet's at home, and I'm on my usual route to work. I stop at a stoplight, waiting for the light to turn. I have the windows all down, sunroof open. The sunroof in a Mini is, 2 feet by 2 feet. So maybe 3 feet. But anyways, I'm sitting there at this stoplight, and out of the clear blue sky, a feather, tiny little white feather, dropped right through my sunroof, landed on my arm. And I had my arm on the steering wheel, and I looked at it, and the light turned green, and I drove to work, and I left it on my arm for some reason. And I got to work, and I got a baggie out of my lunchbox, and I put it in a baggie. Janet and I worked the same place, and so when she got to work, I went into her office and recounted the feather story, and she her eyes filled with tears, and then she shared it with Mindy, and Mindy got all choked up. Kind of choked everybody up in the office. And I took that as Daryl sent me a sign that indeed he was okay. I don't know where you stand on the afterlife, and heaven, and hell for that matter. I've read a lot about NDEs, those experiences where people die on the table for a half hour and come back and report glorious things. And I think some of them are definitely true. But my number one thing to believe that there is an afterlife is Jesus said there was. And then he beat death. He conquered death. Christus Victor conquered death. And so my faith is in Christ. And I'm going to show you something here. Hang on just a second. I have a picture of Daryl and I. It was my birthday but we always celebrated Daryl that last year of his life. Every birthday we celebrated Daryl too. It was kind of like a farewell tour. It wasn't a spoken thing, but we celebrated his life that whole year. You know, even before he was super sick. I don't know why, but anyway, I got this picture, and in the corner here, right here, that's the feather. That's the feather that floated through that sunroof on my Mini Cooper that I'd like to believe indicated that Daryl was indeed doing well and that we really don't have any fear because God has us. And this is a short story today, but it's a good one. God bless.